Welcome back, guys, to the SmeshCast podcast. You're here with me, Roie, and we have Noah here as well. Noah, let's just cut right to the intro.
So what do you think? What do you think of a lot of the fights just a couple of days ago now?
Yeah, so we're just coming off that Smith versus Rakic main event. To be honest, the night was. I mean, there were some good fights lined up. It actually was pretty exciting on paper. I was pretty excited about it last week, and coming into it, the fights. I mean, the prelims were pretty fun. There were a bunch of good finishes, a bunch of submissions on the prelims, but it was a bit of a disappointing main card. There were a lot of drawn out decisions. I felt like decisions aren't always bad. They were all decisions on the main card. But it felt like a lot of the decisions were guys that weren't going for it. It felt like if this was a contender series night, most people on the main card, regardless of their win, would not have gotten signed.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, in both main event, like both of the primary, like the co-main and the main event, with Smith and Lawler, both of them were handily being beat throughout their entire fights. But at the same time, despite being, fairly one-sided losses for them, it wasn't like they were in any significant danger at any point in their fights. I didn't at any point feel like anyone was about to throw, a finisher out there. They seemed like safe, kind of, just doing what you have to do to win, which is really not fun when one person's just doesn't seem to even be trying.
Yeah, so I mean, I think that was a lot more evident in the main event than it was in the co-main event. I will agree with you on the co-main a little bit. I don't think Magny at any point was really. I never really felt like Magny was about to knock Lawler out by any point. But that's really not Magny's style. He's a lot more of a grimy kind of in the clinch, ride it out kind of guy. And he went for a couple submissions, didn't quite get them. So there was a little bit of a chance there. To be fair, Robbie Lawler has no neck, so it's kind of hard to choke the man out. But on that main event, I really agree with you, especially in that third round. Rakic was not trying to hurt him. At no point in that second half, when Rakic had all that control time, he wasn't ground and pounding. He wasn't going for submissions. He was content to just sit on top of him and do nothing. There's no way. I think someone even said in the Twitter comment, the little Twitter feed at the bottom, someone even said in one of those things, if Rakic had fought tonight on the contender series, he would not have gotten a contract because he didn't push it. He did not put a statement win together, in my opinion.
Yeah, overall just a rough night. I guess it's kind of like the opposite of the last card where on paper it looked like a real snooze fest, and then what happened was we got one of the best, one of the better cards of the year, and this one was not a card to show like a new fan. Like if I had a friend who wanted to hang out, it was like, oh, let's watch our first UFC fight for you to watch tonight, and it's Robbie Lawler. He's insane. He's crazy. And then that's what they get. That wouldn't have been a good night for that.
Yeah, let's actually go into the fight specifically because I think we keep on kind of like edging on that conversation, but not quite getting into it. So let's start off with that main event. Right. I mean, that first round we saw, of course, Rakic was just tearing at those legs. Those leg kicks from that kick level of kickboxing.
Those were brutal.
Oh my God.
I thought that we were maybe going to get a leg kick KO.
Yeah,
when Smith fell over.
So when you look at the replay there, it was more of an off balance thing. Smith was actually turned the wrong way somehow, and I wasn't sure if he was going for a takedown. It was really strange. I wasn't really sure what he was going for, but he was doing something like he was kind of almost hopping into the side to maybe a karate kick kind of thing. And that's when he kind of got knocked down, which is why Herb didn't stop it, because I've seen Herb, when guys get knocked down from leg kicks, stop it quick. You saw that in Anderson Silva when he got beat by what's his face? That's fighting
Weidman.
No. Also in the Weidman fight, that was like obviously that was a little bit different. Why am I blanking on this name? This is really frustrating. Jared Cannonier. So when he fought Jared Cannonier, Jared got him with leg kicks, and it was like a couple hard ones. One hard one fell down, and Herb stepped in. But I mean, there were some things that were impressive about Rakic's win. So yeah, he was tearing up the legs, and then he got the takedown. Smith fell down. In the other 2 rounds, he got Smith to the ground. All 3, he just kind of rode on top of him, as I was saying before, and didn't really go for many submissions, not much ground and pound. But it was still impressive to me that, I mean, Smith is a high-level BJJ black belt. You might not think it when you look at the guy, but he's actually a very, very top-level black belt. He has a ton of rear naked chokes. So to be able to control a guy for that long is good. It is pretty impressive, especially when you're a kickboxer.
Action going on.
Right, he's a kickboxer. You don't expect him to be able to dominate on the ground, so it was really impressive to see that out of him. But it wasn't. But he was calling for a title shot after this, and I know I'm sure you'll agree with me. He doesn't deserve it, right? This is not when you have this Glover versus Santos fight coming up in just 2 weeks' time. That's going to decide the next title shot.
Exactly. Yeah, in a division where it seems like the next kind of row of people up for the title shot is pretty clear. Yeah, no, that I'm completely unconvinced after that fight that he has what it takes to take on like a Dominic Reyes, you know?
Yeah, I mean,
he didn't. I don't think that. I don't think he's quite ready yet. Maybe a couple more wins.
I don't think it's even that. For me, it's not even like whether or not he could beat Dominic Reyes, because to be honest, if you look at the style matchup, I mean, if Dominic tries to take him down, he could probably beat him without a problem. But on the feet, you actually never know with such a high-level kickboxer. I might edge on Dom, but I could see that very much being a competitive fight. But what to me disappointed me was that I actually think that the title picture right now is not clear. It's pretty wide open. Of course, you have the Reyes versus Jan Blachowicz fight coming up in just I think 4 weeks time or so. But other than that, you had Santos versus Glover coming up in 2 weeks, and you had this fight. And he very much had a chance to have a big statement win if he had gone and got. I feel like if he had done that first round, gone for some ground and pound, second round, same thing. He had gone for some attacks and finished and put a statement win together. He would have had a potential a challenge at that shot. I still think Santos would have gotten him.
Yeah, maybe we'd be talking about that then.
Maybe
I
we'd be thinking about
issue. Yeah, I think the issue is, and I guess this is something that's going to become much more clear now that the John Jones era is through. I think that beyond a handful of fighters in the division, I think we're going to start to see a real skill deficit with some of these guys at light heavyweight. I think it's quite possibly one of the most shallow divisions right now in terms of like champion quality fighters.
Interesting.
I don't know. I think that outside of, I would say Jan, I'm not even extremely. I'd need to see some more footage. I'm not extremely familiar with some of his earlier career fights, but to me it seems like Dominic and Thiago is the fight to make for light heavyweight.
So there's a couple things you said there, and some I'll agree with, some I will not. What the first thing you said, like, so I'm not going to say I disagree with you, but I'm not going to agree with you either that it's a very shallow division. I think what's going on is that John Jones' greatness is just so insane that we just can't put together how good everyone else is. I think that Anthony Lionheart Smith is a very, very, very good fighter. When you had Gustafsson in the division, that's a really, really good fighter. DC used to be there, fine. He was heavyweight, now retired. But I mean, even when you see Blachowicz, he came in very, very low, as you mentioned, and he actually got destroyed by Corey Anderson their first fight. It was a couple 10-8, maybe even a 10-7 round. It was not even close. And he's a guy that's improved and gotten to the point where now he knocked out Corey Anderson in the first round, and Corey couldn't touch him. I think guys are a lot better than you think, but I don't think we quite know how good these guys can really be. So I think we'll have a better idea in 6 to 12 months' time, maybe 18 months if it takes that long, to see really how good the division is. It's just so impossible to know when you have someone like John Jones at the top.
Okay, I think that's reasonable.
And in terms of what you said about Reyes against Santos, that's a crazy fight. I'm really hyped to make that. I think that is the fight to make if they both win. I think out of all the matchups for the first title defense, I guess, the first non-John Jones title defense at 205, I think the best case scenario for the UFC is a big knockout win for both Reyes and Santos, and for them to face up. Even if it's a win by those two in general, I think that would be the best case scenario for them. But I mean, even if Blachowicz wins, I mean, hey, Santos actually beat Blachowicz. So that is a pretty interesting narrative, but Blachowicz is also a guy who's just getting better and better and better and better and just sneaking up on people. So that's really, really interesting. Hey, you never know what's going to happen there. Weidman
very compelling.
Could be very early, but you never know if Weidman is going to make a comeback or move up to 205. Luke Rockhold has been talking about maybe fighting.
I don't think Weidman's making a comeback.
No, not at 205. That was I misspoke. But Rockhold, was talking about making a comeback potentially at 185, potentially at 205. Could be interesting, though Blachowicz took care of him last time. He's gotten a bunch of surgeries to repair a bunch of things. Who knows if he's different? There's just a lot going on. I think
is there any surgery you can do to replace your glass jaw?
I'm not so sure, but I mean, ask Yoel Romero. He fused that neck together, so there's some rumors that actually could have helped him.
And now he can't turn left.
Now it's okay though. He can't get knocked out either.
Yeah.
It's better than being Bisping with one eye. The last thing to talk about on this, unless you have something else to mention, is I think the future of Smith is really interesting. Smith had actually a lot to say about that. I don't know if he was quite hinting at retirement per se.
Yeah, at first I thought retirement, then I reread it, and it seems like I'm not really sure what he's trying to say. Do you have the message? I guess it was like a tweet that I saw.
It was an Instagram message, I believe. It felt like we were in two different. Yeah, so he's talking about he was talking a lot about weight classes. That was what I got from it. That he felt.
You read out the message?
I don't have I'm not going to read the whole message, but one of the key, I guess, highlights. One of the quotes is that he said it felt like we were in two different weight classes. I think I got some big decisions to make in my career and figure out where to go from here. It's super frustrating to lose to a guy you feel you can beat. But he said something about these guys are just so strong. I don't know exactly what, but something along the lines earlier he had said, these guys are just so strong at 205. But he also mentioned how he doesn't think that he can properly, he says to go to 185 is a full year-round commitment. It's just not right for him, right? It's something so much more. It's a lifetime commitment. He can't just go into training camp and be healthy. He has to actually almost live unhealthily. So what he was talking about is he said, I'm not usually one to call for weight classes and stuff, but I'm kind of in this, I'm a tweener, as they say, right? He's in that in-between position where he's a bit too big for 185. He's a bit too small for 205. And he, as a result, while being an incredibly skilled and talented fighter with a lot of grit, a lot of heart, he just isn't quite big enough, and he just can't find the right place for himself.
Yeah, that's definitely a serious problem. I mean, good for him for being as successful as he has been to get over that. But yeah, it seems like at this point, things are catching up to him. He's taken a lot of damage throughout his career.
Oh my God.
I think that's a really important piece of the puzzle. Possibly the most important piece is just how long of a career he's had. And, he's taken his fair share of damage. And, at a certain point, you can't, you compound that with, aging in general. And you lose a step. You're not as sharp. You can't take those blows as well as you used to. You can't roll with the punches as well. And, you find yourself on the losing end more often than not. And, look at his last fight. That was not a good situation. I mean, he showed why they call him Lionheart for sure. But, heart and grit, that's not, that's just, those are just two very small pieces of a very large puzzle. And I think that he should seriously re-examine, what he wants to do with his career at this point.
I think what frustrated him the most, though, was the fact that he was being beat by this guy on the ground. And I think while the evidence might show one way, I would say that Anthony Smith is much better on the ground still than Alexander Rakic is, and maybe not ever will be. But I think, Anthony Smith right now is a much better grappler, is much better on the ground than Rakic is. And Rakic just had the weight, right? He just had the size.
Right.
And so I think that's what's so frustrating to him, that he just didn't have anything. He was beat by, as he said, he lost to a guy that he felt like he can beat in a way that he felt like he was supposed to be better. and it was just the weight classes that did this. And I mean, you see this also in lighter weight classes. I think it's actually a bigger issue in the lighter weight classes. The biggest issue that everyone's been talking about for years is making that 165-pound weight class moving 170, 175. Because what would that do? There's obviously a huge weight discrepancy between 155 and 170. But also there's a really big difference between 170 and 185. You look at Darren Till. He realistically would do much better at a 185-pound division. You look at Kamaru Usman. That guy's cutting mad weight. Yeah, he's a champion, but I don't think it's healthy for him, right? He should be 175 easy. So,
he's huge.
I mean, so I think that in general, the UFC making more weight classes would do a lot of favors to a lot of fighters. It would be really, really healthy for the fighters. The thing is, I think the UFC is just very set in their ways. I think they very much like this 8 divisions and 8 belts for the men, 4 divisions, 4 belts for the women, and they want to just keep it like that. I think maybe they'll be a little bit more open to the women's. And people have asked maybe if they shut down 125 men's, maybe they'll add a 165-pound men's to compensate, but I don't think those two are related, to be completely honest. I think it's just a problem in general. I would like to see him change it. I just don't expect it to happen.
Yeah, I'm completely unsure as to why they're unwilling to add the 165 weight class. I've read something having to do with Dana White's experience with boxing and boxing having a million weight classes.
Yeah.
I'm not really so well versed in that area, but I've read something along those lines.
It's a slippery slope because in boxing they have I don't know how small it gets, but I know it gets less than 7 pounds for sure. I think there might be some belts that
are less than 7 pounds fighting.
Difference between the weight classes.
That is outrageous. I want to watch that.
I think there's but there's 3 or I think it might go down in some specific cases down to a 3 or 4 pound difference between belts. And at that point, come on, guys, really? Yeah, I'm the 173.2 pound belt holder. You're the 176.8 pound belt, right?
Yeah, it kind of takes away the whole
the champion of the world, that he's the best, and then you get into the and of course it's also different in boxing because you have 5 different belts for 5 different promotions, and it's impossible to get everyone on the same boat to fight each other, or it's difficult. At least it happens, of course. But I just think that it's just not something he wants to have to deal with if he doesn't have to. And he's comfortable with the promotion. You never know what's going to happen in 10 years, but I don't expect it in the next 5. That's for sure. No way.
Right.
All right, moving on. The co-main event, that was also a bit of an interesting one. Another story about a guy that maybe should not retire. We can talk about that. So Robbie Lawler against Neil Magny. We had Neil Magny.
That was a tough one.
Yeah, he put his energy on, right? Neil Magny works his pace, and that's what he did. And we saw that works against Robbie when Colby fought him. But the thing that I think got to me about this fight is it didn't seem like Robbie had his killer instinct. Robbie wasn't the murderous Robbie that we were used to seeing.
Let me tell you, I got the impression from the moment I saw him walking out to the octagon. I saw him step out, I looked at his face, and I thought, oh no.
Really?
He's not in it. He is just not, he's not there. He has no interest in being there.
Like a cowboy kind of thing.
I think you're absolutely right. That killer instinct is gone. I think that it's a paycheck for him at this point. Maybe a little bit of trying to, prove your last little bit of ego to yourself that you can still do it, but he can't do it. I don't think that I think he should retire. I think that he's had an illustrious, long career. He's, has at least one absolute, beyond legendary fight under his belt.
Of course. Many.
I think he's done what he's needed to do. He's shown what he's needed to show, and I think at this point he has everything to lose and very little to gain because he's not getting that title shot. I mean, I can't in a million years picture him standing next to a guy like Usman and, trading. I couldn't imagine that. That's a massacre.
Yeah. So
I think his time has come, and I think he should hang up the gloves. I mean, I think I saw, didn't he throw? He threw 14 strikes in the whole fight, something like that.
Yeah. So here's the thing that here's how I kind of see this thing. As a fighter, especially if you're going to fight these guys that are coming up and that are looking to just be the champion, you need to, on every single night, pour out every last drop. And the guy, when you see Dustin Poirier fight, this is the man who is willing to fight to the death. This is the man who's just going to pour out everything he has out there, win or lose, everything he has. And these guys, every time they do this, it's horrible. Every time they do this, they leave a piece of themselves in the octagon. They're not quite themselves. And there's only, on one hand, there's only so many pieces of yourself that you have, and only so many that you can leave in the octagon. And when you talk about a guy like Robbie Lawler, who's been through so many wars and through so much with such high stakes, when you're older, it's not so easy to do that anymore, right? When you're younger, it's a lot easier to say, go balls to the wall and just leave yourself out there. Robbie's been through a lot. It's hard to stay motivated to that level and just be willing to just to die on your shield, right? To go out on your shield. I don't think he quite has that anymore, and that's not a bad thing. I think it's just something that every person gets to in their career at one point. You just can't. It's just not sustainable. You just can't have that fire burn forever. And I think once that fire stops burning, as you said, that's when you have to start thinking, well, what am I doing this for? Is it for the money? Is it for the paycheck? Is it for that last chance at glory? Or, some guys, they just love to do this, and maybe that's just what they want to do.
Yeah.
And then you just have to think about the risk reward health-wise. And I think, as I'm sure about to go into, at this point in your career.
Sure he might love fighting, but he didn't fight the other night.
That's true.
He got beaten up. He sat there and got beaten up. That's what happened.
He just wasn't able to bring that thing out of him, right? He wasn't able to quite push it. I think at that point in your life, you just got to take a really hard look at yourself and decide, do I want to continue doing this? And is it worth the inevitable long-term health impact that it's going to have? He's been a really, really durable guy, but this is going to catch up to him, because it does with everybody. And at what
only
point
human.
Stop?
I think watching, how things have gone as of late with him, I think the time to really consider that is now.
Yeah.
I think he's got to take some time to reevaluate, his position in the sport.
Well,
he's a legend. He is a legend. Forever.
Absolutely.
Forever.
Easy Hall of Famer. Everybody knows that. Of course, the Rory McDonald fight will be in the Hall of Fame if it's not already. I'm not sure if it is. Number 2, everybody knows that was a legendary fight. He has plenty of them. But let's not dwell too much on the bad. What about Neil Magny, right? Neil Magny did still have a very impressive performance. He used that high output. And hey, he's now breaking into that. What is he? What are the rankings coming into this? Rankings UFC. Let's find out. Because I think he should be pretty high now. I'm feeling 7 or 6. He should be.
Yeah.
So yeah, if we look at this coming into this, I guess it was a little lower than I thought. So Neil Magny was number 14 coming into here.
Yeah.
Wait, was Robbie Lawler even ranked? No way. Oh, he was number 13. Okay, it was 14 versus 13.
Yeah, there's no way he's not ranked.
Okay, yeah. So Magny will probably be 13, maybe number 12 by now. He might be ahead of Diaz. So this is now when you start getting into a little bit of that real shark territory, right? Now you can put on a fight. I can see a Vicente Luque fight could be interesting, an RDA fight, though RDA I think is going down to 155, so that's probably out of the question. Actually, I think an interesting fight to make would be Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, because he has nothing coming up. Magny's pretty interesting in that way. Wonderboy's coming off, I believe, a win against Vicente Luque, but it's been a while. It could be good. Wonderboy might be looking for a higher ranked guy, but if not, I don't see why not.
That would be that'd be a tough sell for Wonderboy, because Wonderboy is a guy who I can very much see being a champion in the next 2 years, I'd say. And I think he has
some wins. I mean, he had that bad
does, but
loss,
I think he's a guy that I would never write off. I would never write him off. He's got that mentality.
So what's his recent record? Let me look quickly. So he has so he came off 2 back-to-back losses, right? He had that really, really close unanimous decision, but controversial loss to Darren Till way back in 2018. That was right. And he had that bad knockout to Showtime Pettis. Then he has 1 win over Vicente Luque. So he's still probably 2 wins away.
Yeah.
Easily. You'd have to
Certainly.
probably beat maybe a Neil Magny if, let's say, he went that low. And then if he would have to beat a Colby or a Burns or Masvidal. I could see actually Masvidal would be a good fight right now. Even Masvidal wants that win back, right? Steven's
get that rematch. I don't think Masvidal's going to get that win, but he can want it all he wants. I will forever. I want this on record. I'm putting this on the internet. I will forever stand by Masvidal is overrated. He's one of the most overrated fighters in like any top 10 of any weight class in the UFC right now. I think he has such a spotty career, such a weird career record, and God, I do not see what it is about his personality that people like. I think he's extremely overrated.
He's beaten Ross Pearson, Jake Ellenberger, Cowboy Cerrone, Darren Till, Van Askren, Diaz. Yes, he lost to Wonderboy and to Maia. He was a split decision to Maia. He almost beat Damian Maia. He put on one of the closest performances that anyone has. I would actually argue maybe the closest performance other than Colby that anyone has ever put on Kamaru. Yeah, he was destroyed by Kamaru, but everyone's destroyed by Kamaru.
I don't think that I don't think that comment counts.
Dude, if you go back to 2016,
there was no world where he was going to win that.
If you go back to 2016, if you want to, let's ignore the Kamaru fight because that's like facing Khabib. He has no chance. All right, he's 6-2 since 2016. Among those 2 losses was a really close, controversial split decision loss to Damian Maia, who nobody beats except for Colby and Kamaru and Woodley, and Wonderboy, who is a very, very top-level fighter. That was 1 loss. Other than that, he's undefeated. And that's, again, Ross Pearson, Jake Ellenberger, Donald Cerrone, Darren Till, Van Askren. Darren Till is a very high-level striker. You have to put some respect on this man's name. That being said, I guess we are going to have
Darren Till is of course an impressive win. I think that Darren Till might be his
Noah.
That's his most impressive win.
I just got a text from Abe Kawa. He's canceling our interview with Jorge next week. He's not so happy to hear this. Yeah, sorry.
Darn.
But I do agree. Darren Till is the most interesting.
He's not okay with my shit talking, really?
Yeah, I can't take it, I guess.
Thunk it. Who would have thunk?
But yes, I do think I agree. Darren Till is his most impressive win, absolutely. And because Darren Till, I mean, the more I see him fight high-level guys and compete, I mean, look at that Whitaker fight is just amazing how high level this man is. You don't realize. I thought he was a little overblown to begin with, but he's not.
No, he is.
He's a contender.
A very impressive fighter. I mean, yeah, I think Jorge Masvidal is what I would say in terms of being overrated. I think that like his title shot against Kamaru, I looked at it similarly to Derek Lewis's shot against Cormier. There was no world where Masvidal was walking out of there with the belt. It was not going to happen. I don't think he will ever be champion.
I think your comparison was perfect. I think your explanation was not. I agree. It was just like Derek Lewis DC in the sense that they had almost no chance to win, except they both had that one-shot knockout chance.
Sure. Okay. Sure.
And they both, and that's what sold it to everybody. And that's what sold the fight, right? The selling on any Derek Lewis fight is you never know when that bomb's going to drop, right?
Right.
And of course, with Masvidal, he had the chance and he went for it a couple times, but just not quite enough. One more fight to mention tonight, because we went on a bit of a ramble there with Masvidal. That was our fight of the night, a crazy war between Ricardo Lamas and Algio. Was it Bill Algio, I believe?
Yeah, Big Bill.
And so that fight, I think, could have been scored a draw. I think you could have given Algio that first round as well. The second round was easily Algio's. And that third round, Lamas came back. He fought hard, and he got a 10-8 round. So they ended up giving that first round to Lamas as well. So it ended up being 29-27. But I could have seen a 28-28. That would have been okay in my books. I like that fight. That was a great fight. And they got fight of the night bonus, of course.
Yeah. I don't really have a lot to say. I Actually, for the life of me, I had such a great time watching the fight, but right now, off the top of my head, I can't really recall exactly what happened.
So
I guess that's just
I
how
think it was
memory
mostly on the
works.
feet for the first 2 rounds, and then that third round, Lamas actually took him down and just kind
Mm.
of rode him for a while and got some damage down, but like, Algio had nothing. So it
Mhm.
was a clear 10-8. Now you actually wrote in the notes here, what's next for Lamas? And I actually have an answer for you. Lamas, from
Mhm.
what I heard, retired actually right after that
Oh,
fight. He actually,
really?
I guess you didn't listen to his post-fight interview. He retired during that post-fight interview. So I
Oh,
mean
really?
that
I guess no. I guess I didn't catch that.
I don't think he said absolutely it's retirement. He said this is probably it, and if it is it, thank you so much to everybody, and et cetera, et cetera. So it seems like that very much might be his last fight, and good on him, man. That was a good fight to go
Yeah.
out on. He showed his resilience. He had a really good last round and got his win bonus.
Yeah.
And
Hell of
good
a way to
luck, man. Good
leave.
luck.
All right. Well, okay. That answers that question then.
Now, speaking of retirement, the big news that dropped just this morning, of course, on the DC
Mhm.
Helwani show, DC has formally retired. Now, we all thought that was very likely coming. He said on the
Mhm.
broadcast, he said to Joe Rogan, hey, I would only come back for a title shot, and I just don't see that happening. He kind of actually said the same thing on Ariel's show, but he
Yeah.
was a lot more committed to just saying, look, I'm done. And I think
Mhm.
he was talking a lot about the young guys coming up are just, they're not necessarily better, but they're just more athletic. And he's on the
Mhm.
decline, they're on the incline, and every day, every sequential day, he's more at a disadvantage, is what he said. And you got
Yeah.
to know when to hang it up. He's never lost 2 in a row. He doesn't want to make it 3. It's a horrible way to end a career.
Yeah. And he's got Cormier. If he's got he got 7 deadly sins, and he's a prideful man. He does not like losing. He is as competitive as they come. So I think it's very smart of him to hang up the gloves now, because honestly, in the long run, I don't know what's going to cause more harm to Cormier if he loses: physical damage or the damage to his ego.
I mean, I don't even care at
He
this
takes
point
that
because,
very seriously.
but and his legacy as well. Like, look, when you think about it, if he had retired after that first Stipe fight, what his legacy would have been insane, right? He would
Mm-hmm.
have that 1/2 losses to John Jones, and that's it. He'd be double champion,
Mm-hmm.
beat Stipe, the greatest of all time. And even after the rematch, there were still those questions. And then you just see the difference between after that first fight to after the second to after the third. And I just don't. Yes, there's always
Mm-hmm.
almost that gambler's fallacy. One more, I'm going to win eventually. But that's not true, because
Mm-hmm.
every time he goes, he lowers his own odds of winning. And at one point, you got to call
Mm-hmm.
it a career. And look, he's got an insane broadcasting career ahead of him. He's got the DC Helwani show,
Oh yeah.
and he does it twice a week, by the way. He does it once live on YouTube,
Mm-hmm.
once on ESPN Plus. He's got he's
Yeah.
one of the top UFC broadcasters. He has Detail on
Oh
also on
yeah.
ESPN. That's the Kobe Bryant show. Like, the man's career is flourishing. Why damage yourself more and your ego more? Like, there's just
Mm-hmm.
nothing left in it for him. I'm really excited to see all the future he has. And hey, you never know. He could be the next Dana White. You never
Could
know.
be.
I could see it. All
But
right.
then we've got Dana White the third to contend with.
Yeah, but Dana White the third is a football player, actually. Yeah, he plays for like Florida or something. I'm not actually sure.
No kidding.
Another interesting topic to talk about this week. So this is not necessarily recent, but this has been spoken about the last couple of weeks. It's been kind of
Mm-hmm.
interesting. So Sean O'Malley, as we recall, I think 2 to 3 weeks ago on that DC Stipe card, the co-main event, took that loss to Marlon Chito Vera, got him with
Mm-hmm.
those low calf kicks, hit him on that nerve at the right of the back of the knee. I always forget what the name of that nerve is, but regardless, that nerve, when it gets hit, makes your whole leg go numb. His foot just wasn't working. He couldn't lift his leg anymore, and he ended up being a one-legged fighter, getting finished by Cheeto quite quickly. So
Mm-hmm.
since then, he's been saying, I still feel like an undefeated fighter. I don't feel like I lost. I still
I'm
feel
sure that's how he
undefeated.
feels.
And he's like, yes, I lost, but I don't feel like I lost. I feel like I'm the winner, which has become, by the way, a meme everywhere. But
Yeah.
at the same time, he knows that he's being trashed for it. And I don't know if you saw this. He released a video yesterday. So he went on Instagram or Twitter, actually. one of the two, and he had a contest to give away for his own merch. He's giving away his own merch. And what was the giveaway? It was roast me the best. Roast my loss. And then he came up with a YouTube video where he sat in front of the camera and read, and he had his girlfriend compile the best one, his wife, I think. He didn't read them in advance, and he had his live reaction to people roasting the shit out of him, which was really, really funny. And a lot of them were really good. Really, and it was self-deprecating, and he gave the funniest one. He gave him some merch.
Huh.
So like,
no kidding.
There's like very, very much two sides to this. He is taking it well and badly on the side of the fans. He's also taking it, and there's that conversation. What side do you think is better from a fan's perspective? And the other conversation to have is what would you rather see from a fighter in general? Would you rather see a fighter who, no matter what the circumstances of their loss, takes it, says, hey, I earned that loss. I lost. At the end of the day, they beat me. That means they were the better man that night. Or would you rather that guy keep that ego, say, no, I'm the best in the world. That guy is not better than me. Shit happened. That's annoying about fighting, but it happens in fighting. I would beat him any other time, and I will beat him if we ever cross paths in the future, and I'm still the best in the world. What would you rather?
Right. I'm always a fan of the humble guys. It's interesting how he's handled this in the exact opposite way that GSP handled his loss to Matt Serra, a fighter that he also felt was leagues beneath him, and learned very quickly that if you underestimate your opponent, it's not about, I think he did say that it's not about who's the better fighter, it's who fights better that night. That's
interesting.
If you underestimate your opponent, you can get yourself beat pretty easily. And I think that, GSP walked away from that in his scenario, and he immediately said, I know I underestimated this guy. I know I did this poorly, and I did poorly by my own standards. So what can I do to improve and be better? And then he avenged that loss in one of the most devastating victories I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
And Sean is handling it in the exact opposite way. He's just insists that he knows he's still the better fighter. He's still talking about it, feeling like he still won. I mean, look, I'm on the side that thinks that Sean did look very good before those leg kicks in terms of his movements, the angles he was cutting. I think he was
it was beautiful, man. The footwork
looking great.
Oh my god!
Until he lost, in half of his mobility. So I don't know. I wish he would have handled this a little more humbly. It changes my opinion, I guess, a little bit, knowing that he did that, had that roast contest giving away merchandise. I think that's pretty funny. Good, sign of a good sport. But yeah. I don't know. I prefer a humble fighter. I prefer somebody who, really exhibits those tenets of martial arts of, humility. And I guess I'm interested to see how he comes back from this. I'm wondering if if this is him or if he's leaning into a persona a little too much.
So the thing is, a couple things to talk about there. First of all, with the GSP comparison, I think it's a very interesting comparison to make. The one distinction I will make is that the fights were very different, or the reasons they lost were very different. GSP might have underestimated his opponent. But GSP was beaten. He was being beaten for the majority of that fight. On the other hand, when you look at Suga Sean, it was an injury. And before that, as you mentioned, he looked fantastic. He looked like the better fighter. It did look like he was better until that happened. On the other hand, that injury was still caused by Chito. Yes, it's a freak injury. Yes, it's an injury that doesn't usually happen. But the only reason it happened is because Sean didn't check that leg kick. And if he had checked it, nothing would have happened.
Kick. It did exactly what it was supposed to do.
Check the kick, man. I wouldn't say that was his game. No one's going to say that was Chito's game plan, right?
No, absolutely
right?
not.
You can't say, they kick him in the nerve and make give him a dead foot. But
this isn't like, to go back to Masvidal, seeing the footage of him practicing that knee to the head.
That was planned.
Flying
exactly.
Knee. That it's not like this was a true freak incident.
No, this was actually a bit of a but again, he could have checked the leg kick and maybe this wouldn't have happened. So I think the other thing to consider though is when you look at a fighter, if you're going to go into the octagon against a man who's trying to take your head off and do everything he can physically do to your body until the referee pulls him off of you. You need to have that ego of, I'm better than you. You need to be a little bit delusional, and you need to have that thought of, hey, there's nothing this man can do to me, or maybe have a little bit of respect for him. Of course, understand there's something he can do to me, but I will beat him. I am better. I am the best in the world. Because if you're not the best in the world, how much even more, you have to be crazy to get in there if you're the best in the world. If you don't think you're the best in the world, you have to be the level of craziness you have to be to go against a guy who you genuinely think is going to destroy you. You just can't do it. And also the way that Sean fights, he's kind of an egotistical fighter, right? He has some showboaty leans, kind of the Anderson Silva swag.
Yeah.
He uses that distance. He and the way he fights throws other guys off. That's what makes him good. And so I also kind of would be worried if he was taking the really humble GSP side of maybe he's going to change how he fights and not be that same brash but successful fighter that he is being.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a reasonable fear to have.
And to answer the gimmick question, sorry, I don't think he's putting on a gimmick too much. I think he genuinely is salty. He doesn't think he won. Maybe the only gimmick could be playing into it, like steering into it. He's like, look, I'm getting shit from all the fans for being a sore loser, so I should steer into it a little bit. Be like, hey guys, roast me. I think that was a really smart move, and I think that was a bit more promotional. Maybe not his personality, but just it was his personality. But as you were saying, it's a little bit of a gimmick. He knows what he's doing there. It's smart marketing. But I don't think that the saltiness is a ploy by any means. I don't think that's a
right.
That's a face.
All
right. Other social media news to tack on to that Sean O'Malley.
Oh, big news.
Everybody's favorite crazy motherfucker, Mike Perry, posted Make a Death Wish Foundation. So he posted a list of 8 fighters who all have called him out in the last, I would say, I think most of them in the last 6 months to a year, but some of them a little bit further back. I'm just going to read them out to you real quick, and we can talk about some of the highlights.
How about you read the whole poster? The whole poster is great.
Oh, I don't have the whole
Mike
poster in front of me.
I've got it. I'll take it.
Oh, go
Mike
ahead.
Perry, the Make a Death Wish, a Platinum Nation Foundation, creating life-changing wishes for fighters with a mental illness. Help make death wishes come true. Set up your monthly donations. August 2020. Oh, and then we've got a handsome photo of Mike Perry on the beach, looking forlornly into the camera, as if to think, "What the fuck are you looking at?" Let's see. He says all 8 of these fighters have made the same death wish: to die at the hands of Platinum Mike Perry in the cage, and Mike is happy to grant this wish. And then he lists Nico Price, Nicholas Dalby, Daniel Rodriguez, Emil Meek, Kazmat Chimaev. God, I gotta figure out that. I gotta practice these last names.
Meck, by the way.
Michael Pereira. Pardon?
Michael Pereira. Okay, you got to stop here. Emil Meck, Michelle Becerra, Michael Pereira, Michelle Becerra, and Nicholas Dalby.
How about that?
And
Munir, you're on my death wish.
Darren Till, and of course Munir Lazez. Now, which one of these stand out to you the most? Who I guess, I mean, if you look at them, some of them make no sense. I mean, the biggest one, obviously him and Darren Till were talking a mad shit. Darren Till said something about wanting to raw dog his girl, and he made a T-shirt now. His new brand is Raw Dog Brand. That's what he sells T-shirts. It's really funny. But he's not even in the same weight class. They're not even in the same weight class. That one's out the window. Other guys like Emil Mack, Nicholas Dalby, Danny Rodriguez, good fighters, all of them. None of them, I don't think, have the name power to actually fight Mike Perry, though you never know. The other 4, we got, or other few, who do we got? Nico Price, Michelle Becerra, Khamzat Chimaev, and Munir Lazez. Those are the 4 I think actually could be reasonable.
Yeah. I think, I wouldn't mind throwing Khamzat to the Wolves and just say, you've been so dominant in those last 2 fights against relative nobodies. Let's just see what happens when we throw you in there against someone with a name. and a rank, and let's just get
Is
a
Mike Perry
litmus
ranked?
test of just how good are you?
Is Mike Perry ranked?
Is he not?
I'm not sure, actually. He might not be. I wouldn't be shocked if he wasn't. 170 is a stacked division. I don't think he is. No,
I
he's
guess
not.
so. Oh, no kidding. He's
No,
just
yeah. I mean, look at that. Look at that list, dude. I mean,
he's so goddamn loud that he's just
no, I think he was
put
hovering around
himself in my
15 or
head as
so.
somebody with a rank.
I think he was hovering around. I think he was ranked at one point, but not anymore.
Yeah, no kidding. Losses to Cerrone. Well, yeah, he's yeah, I gotcha.
But I actually don't think it's a bad fight. I mean, Khamzat, he's been really, really good and physical and dominant. But the thing is that's really interesting about Mike is that he is a really big, dominant, physical fighter. And so that would be interesting to see how he does against a guy like Khamzat as well. Khamzat, I mean, he's very, very, very technical. He's brutal, but he's technical. What would be really interesting to see is can he stand out? Like most guys are going to be scared of him. Most guys are not going to be able to deal with him. If there's one person that you can see that's not going to give a shit, it's Mike Perry. He's going to run at you. He's going to attack you. He's going to fight back, and he's not going to go and try to like be overly careful or something. So I think that'll be really interesting.
He's going to charge in there like a bull.
And that's what I want to see. I want to see how Khamzat can deal with that. To deal with someone who's a little bit less traditional.
All right, so you know what? I'm going to put him in as my. I want to see, his death wish come true.
And you know what? They've been marketing him pretty well. They've been trying to market him. I think everyone knows he's very marketable. Mark Perry is a guy who's not ranked, so he's not like a huge step up, but he is a step up in competition for sure over the other guys. That's interesting.
I think that if anybody on this list can manage to get a win over Mike Perry, other than Darren Till, who it really would be below him to even fight him at this point.
Yeah, no way.
Anybody who gets the win, even though Mike Perry, I guess even though he isn't ranked, people, whoever beats him and gets to talk shit about him after beating him, right after all of his recent drama, is going to get a real big fan boost in popularity, just because Mike Perry is, I think if you can definitively beat him and then just talk all that shit to him, I think that would do good things.
So here's
whoever is in that position.
Here's how I see the rest. So Michelle Becerra actually has a fight coming up actually this coming weekend. If he can get a really, really big impressive win, maybe they give him the Mike Perry fight. I actually don't see that happening. I just don't think that they're the right match. Munir Lazez is another really good fighter. I don't think they're going to give him the fight either. He has one win in the UFC. He's a guy that was recommended by Dana White's son's friend and fought the very, very scary Abdul Razak Al Hassan. And they fought on Fight Island, and Lazez had a really, really good showing where he stood in the pocket with this huge, big knockout artist. Didn't get scared, stood up with him, and then picked him apart with the outside and had some really interesting new techniques like this front elbow that he was throwing to split the guard. That was very, very unique and interesting. So I think this is the guy to watch out for. I just don't think that they're going to make that fight, unfortunately. And the last guy that I actually do think they have a good chance of making, I could see them making a Mike Perry and Nico Price fight, because that's just such a fun fight. Why wouldn't you make a Mike Perry Nico Price fight? I thought they had already fought. If I'm being completely honest, even if they did fight, I don't think I couldn't find any history of it. I felt like I thought they did for some reason, but I guess they didn't. But I would want to see that again. I don't care. That's a crazy fight.
Maybe you dreamed about it or something.
Maybe I dreamed about it. It's possible. Coming up, we also have, finally, it's confirmed, Brian Ortega will be taking on the Korean Zombie on October 17th.
I don't think we really have a lot to say. We spoke about this at length last podcast.
Okay, well.
Yeah, but glad to see that fight official. Very excited for it. That's a proper grudge match.
Absolutely, and the winner, in my opinion, is the clear person to challenge Volkanovski for the title shot. Above Max. I don't care what you think.
Max, no, it doesn't matter what I think. Max has lost to him twice in a row.
Exactly.
He's not getting that shot for a little while.
Dana White actually says he can justify it. I just don't agree with it.
I wouldn't agree with it either. I can see it being justifiable because last fight was so close. But that's a whole other issue. We don't need to get into that.
Yes. Dana White and Anderson Silva have both confirmed that Anderson's final fight will be the upcoming fight against Uriah Hall. That is actually a pretty fun fight. Uriah Hall is a big, he's fast, he's flashy, he has some knockout power. And of course, Silva is still flashy, he's still a fun fighter to watch. What do you think about that fight as his last fight, I guess, as well? What's your thought on that?
Yeah, I think it's a fight where it'll give Anderson an opportunity to, show off some of his classic moves. Show off some of that head movement and that mobility and defense that we saw that he still has, from his fight against Adesanya. And I think that I don't have too much to say about the fight particularly. I think it's a good matchup for his retirement. Anybody who would have expected like a bigger fight for Anderson Silva, maybe if he retired, 3-4 years ago.
Yeah.
But I think that it's going to be a good fight for the fans. I think it's a good send-off for Anderson. I'd like to see him perform well in this fight. I don't want to see him go off on a loss, especially not a bad loss, which is
you never know.
It's a risk it is certainly a risk he's taking fighting someone like Hall.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing though that I like about it, and that's it. They didn't just put him up against a guy Hall is kind of a rising contender. They wanted to give him Yoel Romero, and then that fight was pulled for undisclosed reasons. But we never really. What I like about this fight is that they gave him a guy who is willing to stand with him. Because I don't want to see him fight a Derek Brunson, where Derek's just going to grind him and try to take him down. I don't want him to fight even Yoel Romero, who's going to try to take him down or just punch him out. I want to see him fight a fun fight. That's why the Anthony Pettis fight would have been fun. Just a guy who's going to
that would have been good too.
Who's just willing to kick around and just have fun with him and give him a throwback. He doesn't need to necessarily not try to knock each other out. It doesn't need to be super, super, super influential for the division. It just needs to be something that lets Anderson be Anderson and have his last show. Make it a show, not a competition.
Exactly.
Or a fun competition.
I'd like to see it go like a fight along similar lines as that Adesanya fight, which really seemed like there weren't very high stakes, and they were both in it just for a good time.
Well, there were high stakes, but they were being playful, and there were high level of chess, and they weren't necessarily trying to kill each other in there. They weren't. They weren't just scrapping.
That's what I mean. They were
a chess
just
match,
having a good time.
Yeah,
it was. Yeah, their fight was I see somewhere between sparring and a fight. They weren't trying to cause major damage.
It wasn't a grudge match.
Well, maybe Silva was. Silva was fighting as hard as he could. Well, but Adesanya, I think, could have. If he really went at it as much as he could, wasn't so starstruck, I think that it would easy to hit the office for him.
Well, what I liked about that fight is that it took a lot of things from Silva's career full circle. He did a lot of his classic Silva moves in that fight, right? He did a lot of that big trunk and head movement. But he also wasn't
as effective as in the past. But
but what also
strikes very well.
When he had Adesanya against the fence, he went for that big flying knee, that classic Silva flying knee, and you saw Adesanya know it was coming, get out of the way before it even came, and it said, no. You had a couple times when Silva was back against the cage, and then he put his hands against the cage and said, come here, right? Trying to bait. These were all it was classic Anderson Silva, right? It was just, it brought back those memories, that nostalgia. It put on the show, but it was also influential, and I think that's the perfect kind of environment or atmosphere for Silva's last fight.
Yeah, I think if it goes as well as that went, that would be best case scenario.
Yeah.
So, and I guess we can talk more about Silva as a fighter, after he retires.
Yeah, I think we can have that conversation as to where he stands, especially with the PED use. But I think that's a conversation to have after this final fight.
Yes, let's let the man retire.
Yeah, we do have one final piece of news to talk about this week, and that is regarding our our still heavyweight champion Stipe Miocic. And still Stipe, just like before this fight, has expressed a little bit of a disinterest in fighting Ngannou. It's not necessarily he's saying he hasn't necessarily said he doesn't want to fight Ngannou, but he has said that he'd
I'm not
like
so
some
sure about that,
fresh
actually.
meat. I think he said he wants some new things, something fresh. He wants a fresh matchup if he can. I think he's spoken about Jones. He's spoken about other guys. And I don't really know why, to be honest, because if he really thinks I don't see Stipe as this guy that's scared of anybody. There's no way the man is scared.
Oh yeah, no
even
way.
of Ngannou.
He doesn't care. He'll fight anyone.
And
He'll
he's
fight
already
fire.
beaten him, and he probably thinks that he won. Right? He probably thinks that he'd win again. So why wouldn't he want to fight Ngannou again? He knows it's the biggest. I think it's the biggest fight.
If I may, I'll just read out the message that was put out on Stipe's Instagram story.
When was this?
He put out a 10 minutes ask me anything sort of thing. Somebody asked him, which one is a harder fight for you, Jones or Ngannou? To which Stipe responded, Francis isn't exciting to me. I already put on a 25-minute clinic on how to beat him. Want a new challenge. Would love to box.
Okay.
So I think
that's weird.
I don't know if he has like a specific angle, or I mean, I think honestly it's most likely that there is no angle. I don't think he is particularly interested in fighting Ngannou again.
Look, the guy has no chance. I'm going to say it again: 0 chance of ever fighting a top boxer. Yeah. If he wants to fight boxing, he's going to fight a middle to nothing dude who he maybe should beat, or maybe he shouldn't beat. He's not going to get a top-level boxer. No one wants to box Stipe Miocic. I'm sorry. He's just not – he's not known for his elite Olympic level. He's just not that level. I'm sorry.
He's just a great all-arounder.
And so, look, unless you're going to – so you're not going to leave MMA. If you want to make more money, you have to stay in MMA. And the only fight I could see possibly getting more money than Francis Ngannou is John Jones. I cannot see anybody else in any heavyweight division, maybe Brock Lesnar, but he's not coming back. And Rumble Johnson is coming back at 205. So no one's going to fight him at heavyweight that's going to make him more money than Ngannou. Ngannou's who all the hype is behind. Ngannou is who the UFC is behind. Why would you not sell your own fight? All he's doing is throwing water on the fight and selling less pay-per-views. He could just put in, hey, Ngannou looks like a killer. He looks even better, but I'm still the best in the world. I can beat anybody. I just beat one of the greatest in all time of DC 2 out of 3 times. And nobody, right? Like, he can say all this stuff if he wants to and sell the fight. Instead, he's just putting water on it.
Maybe this is his way of selling the fight. Maybe this is his way of selling it, saying, I don't care about Ngannou. I don't want him. Makes Ngannou a little hungrier. Makes it look really like Ngannou is chasing after that title. So
he's not selling the fight. He's playing mind games, you think?
Maybe.
He's trying to frustrate
I think
Ngannou?
It is a compelling narrative for a fight of a champion just saying, you're not even worthy of fighting me. Or the next most likely step in a chance, not even worth my time.
He's setting up the rematch. Okay. Maybe he's trying to almost put it out there that he doesn't think Ngannou is anything, because now if he loses to Ngannou, he's beaten him once, and there's that whole narrative, I underestimated him, now I have a rematch immediately. And of course, everyone knows that Stipe will sell pretty well, I think, in a second trilogy. I think he'll be big enough at that point if he faces Ngannou and it's a big enough fight.
For sure.
All right. That being said, we have a pretty good card this weekend. It's nothing insane, but it is actually half decent coming up.
Hey, we've had cards that are not so fun on paper end up looking pretty good. So
yeah, so I guess this one should be in theory then a half decent card if it's a half decent.
Any card headlined by the Reem, you got at least one highlight reel fight.
Exactly. So we do have Alistair Overeem taking on Augusto Sakai. Augusto Sakai has actually quietly been rising quite well in this heavyweight division. So he started off in Dana White's Contender Series Brazil, and he won in the second round with a TKO against Marcus Corrado, who never made the UFC, so not something so crazy. However, ever since then, he has 4 fights in the UFC. He is perfect in those 4 fights, 4-0, and he has 2 knockouts or KOs or TKOs, and the other 2 were actually controversial split decisions wins. So he beat Andrei Arlovsky and he beat Blagoy Ivanov. So I mean, he's kind of either knocks a guy out easily or he just squeaks by them. He's a bit of a shorter man. He's not. I don't know what his reach is, but I don't think he's anywhere near the size of Alistair Overeem. Yeah, he's 6'3" only, right? Overeem is a giant.
Yeah.
How big is Overeem? What, 6'7"? If I had to guess.
Oh boy, I would love to type it in and search it up, but I have to hold
Here we are.
my
Overeem
phone's
is
power cable so it doesn't fall.
Overeem is 6'4". It looks like. So
God,
yeah,
he
he's
carries
actually not that
himself
much.
like a giant.
Yeah, he does. He has 2 centimeter height advantage over Augusto. In terms of reach, though, he has an 8 centimeter reach advantage, which translates to roughly 5 inches, I think, maybe 3 inches. So he has a decent reach advantage. They are approximately the same size. Weight. They both go right in at 265. So look, Sakai is still a big guy. He's going to hit hard, but he doesn't have the reach. He doesn't have the kickboxing pedigree that Overeem does. I think he's going to get caught in the clinch.
Yeah.
Beaten up in the clinch. I'm curious actually what the odds are on this. So if I go to best fight odds, what do you think of this fight? How well do you know Augusto Sakai?
I don't know him extremely well, but I mean, based on what you've just told me, I wouldn't exactly give him the best odds against Overeem. Overeem's on a tear right now. Overeem's looking great. Overeem has a potential path to a title shot.
Overeem coming off a big win over Walt Harris, who, by the way, I don't know if you heard this, is actually running for city councilor. So that's pretty interesting.
Good for him.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, so he has a big win coming off of Walt Harris, who everyone knows is a huge beast. I don't think that Augusto Sakai puts on I think Augusto Sakai is an easier opponent than Walt Harris. I might be wrong. I might be underestimating him. I think that Alistair will definitely beat him in this fight. But I mean, the odds only have Overeem as a minus 150. So only about a 1.5 to 1 favorite. Not actually as big as I would think.
Well, I guess, Overeem always comes in with that glass jaw potential of his. He's got to be very defensive if he wants to get wins. So
that's true as well.
Let's see. It's no matter what. Listen, like I said, when you got a fight with Overeem in it, there's win or lose, it's going to be a highlight end. So, check in for that one for sure.
In addition, we got Michel Pereira, as I mentioned earlier. He's a very, very fun fighter. I think he's moving up to. I think he's actually moving up a weight class. I'm not fully sure. I think he might have been 155 beforehand. Now he's 170, unless he was always 170.
If he can maintain his mobility at a higher weight class, that's worrisome. He's very fun to watch. Very interesting fighter.
Right. He has all those cartwheels. I mean, he has to be a bit smarter with his energy as well, right? You can't just throw around. You can go and throw a cartwheel kick or whatever, but you have to be close for it. You have to set it up somewhat. You can't just keep on throwing them because the guys were just running away from him, letting him waste his energy, and then they would take him out. But he's fighting Zelim Imadaev, who is, I believe, a Dagestani fighter. So this is actually, honestly, maybe not such a great card on paper. The guys aren't huge names, but it should be a pretty fun fight, fun fight card because these guys are fun fighters. So Zelim is 8-2. In the UFC, how many has he fought? So he hasn't fought that many in the UFC. He's actually only has 2 fights in the UFC, and he's actually lost both of them. So he was 8-0 coming in, and he has losses to Danny Roberts and to Max Griffin, both of whom are decent fighters, neither of whom are ranked fighters. So I mean, this might be Zelim's last chance at a fight in the UFC, at least until he makes some progress in the regional scene. But I think Michel Pereira is a good guy to put him up against because it gives him the chance to showcase himself. He's a tough matchup for anybody because it's so strange. But I mean, if you can tire the guy out and then take him out and put a statement out, it could be good.
Yeah, definitely. High stakes on that one.
Yeah, and then the final notable fight I would say is Ricky Simón. I'm actually not sure. I've heard both pronunciation because he is Brazilian, and so you do say Hickey for some, but other people call him Ricky. So Ricky Simón is taking on Brian Boom Kelleher. Ricky Simón is out of Chael Sonnen's gym. Chael is a really big fan of his. He says that that Simón is actually the best fighter he has ever seen in the gym. And that is not necessarily that's of course not the same thing though as being the best fighter that you've ever seen overall. So
Sure.
he was looking really, really good. I believe he was undefeated when he was coming into his fight against Uriah Faber, his first ever main event against Uriah Faber, and he got knocked out in like a minute and a half. Sorry, 46
To be fair,
seconds.
That's Uriah Faber is one hell of a fighter.
Yeah, it was a 40-year-old Uriah Faber, though, and he was expecting to get run
Still a hell
over.
of a fighter.
Everyone thought he was going to run over him, and it was a good knockout, though. It was a really, really switch kind of, just a really fast kind of classic Uriah Faber overhand right that got him and finished him. Coming off of that, he fought Rob Font, another great fighter, but another older fighter. And he lost to Rob Font, 3-round unanimous decision. But then he came back and he fought Ray Borg just a few weeks ago. Just a couple months ago in May, back in the Jacksonville cards. And he managed to beat him by split decision. So he had some really, really good start in the UFC. He won his first 3 fights. And since then, against some really good guys, Hani Yahya is a really good fighter that he beat. But he's had kind of a rough patch as of late. And his last fight was a split decision win, kind of close. I'm not really sure where he's at right now. On the other hand, he's taking on Brian Kelleher. Brian Kelleher is a really, really exciting fighter. Brian has, I believe, 9 fights in the UFC. He's 5-4 in the UFC, and only one of those 9 fights actually went to a decision. All the rest of them were finished.
Exciting.
In fact, he actually has 2 fights against. This is pretty interesting. Julio Arce, who fought in the UFC. He fights in the UFC right now. He's in the UFC featherweight division right now. And he actually fought him twice before they were in the UFC. They fought each other twice, and he beat him twice. So that's actually pretty impressive. He has losses to Marlon Vera. He has a recent loss to Cody Stamann. But this is a man who's knocked out Hunter Azure, submitted Ode Osborne. It seems whenever you give him a mid to lower tier fighter, like if you give him a guy who's not ranked, he should be able to beat him. And he starts to have trouble around those ranked guys. He seems like a really very much a bubble, like kind of 20 to 10 kind of fighter, depending on the night.
Right. Guy's got room to grow.
He has room to grow. He's still young, I believe. How old is he? Born in 86. So actually he's not that young. He's 33, I guess. 34. Not that young. He doesn't have that much left. He's also in a young division, right?
Depending on how long he's been in the game.
Yeah, but he's a featherweight. Featherweights don't last too late, right? Once you get into those 35s, you should lose that speed. 45. Exactly.
Right.
Which is why, by the way, that's what makes Frankie Edgar so special. But that's something we spoke about last week.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll see what kind of things he does. I think that'll be probably the fight of the night if I had to guess. I think Kiki Simone against Brian Kelleher will be fight of the night.
All right.
Even though Michelle Pereira and Zelina Budayev has a chance, you never know if they actually go and try to put on a show. So we'll see what happens with those.
Let's see.
Other than that,
seems like a reasonably exciting card.
Yeah, it's been a pretty quiet week.
Some good times.
Hopefully, it lives up to the usual hype of okay on paper, amazing in person.
Yeah, some fights are better than no fights. So
absolutely, we cannot complain in these times that every single Saturday night. And by the way, I don't know if you've been watching every Tuesday night. We have Dana White's Contender Series that's continued. Actually, by the way, before we go, I did want to mention there was I think I sent this to you. There was a really, really crazy kind of fight mix. I think it was called Fight Circus. This happened last weekend, I think on Sunday night.
I remember seeing that.
Yeah,
it was reading the article about that felt like I was in a fever dream.
But it was fun, right? So they had for those that don't know, they put on basically like a bunch of kind of just like what would happen if kind of fight. So they had like one really big guy against like 2-on-1 where the guy is like 220 against like 2 145s or something. Yeah. And for the record, both times the younger guys won. The smaller guys, rather.
They annihilated him both times.
What happens is that one guy would just kind of grab onto him and latch onto him, and the other guy would just hit him from the outside and beat him up. Yeah.
That
was funny.
Pretty much exactly how you would think that would go.
They had a fight that was like, it was like a boxer against a Muay Thai fighter, And the first round was boxing only. The second round was like Muay Thai, and the third round was MMA. Like they had all sorts of really, really weird stuff. They had an intergender grappling match. But that's a bit different. I don't know if I would be okay with it with fighting, but with grappling, yeah, no problems. It was a look. I kind of like the fact that these things are happening. It brings. I'm not going to say it's going to grow MMA by any means, but it's still a fun thing to look at. It's what made the UFC happen in the first place, right? The very first UFC was advertising. We have a wrestler, we have a grappler, we have a this. Well, who would win?
Specialized matches.
Guys were fighting with one glove. Guys were just doing all sorts of really weird shit. Yeah. Some guys had shoes on. You just couldn't kick with shoes on. Like,
yeah, why not just have fun with it?
It kind of brings it back to its roots. It's fun.
Yeah, why not? Enjoy it.
And Chael Sonnen actually is also kind of pushing the envelope a little bit. So he's had his Submission Underground series for a while. It's been maybe 2 years or so. He's been airing on Fight Pass, where he brings in some top level jiu-jitsu guys, and he has them grapple in a cage. Well, recently, in fact, I believe it was either last night or 2 nights ago, Chael actually premiered Wrestling Underground, which is just like Submission Underground, jiu-jitsu in a cage, except, of course, wrestling in a cage. Brings some kind of different little switch up to wrestling, right? It exposes a lot more MMA fans to wrestling. I don't ever watch wrestling, and it was on Fight Pass, and I just saw it. It came up. I said, you know what? Why not? Let's check it out. And I watched wrestling for the first time. He had a bunch of different types of wrestling. So he had, of course, freestyle, but as well as Greco-Roman. In the Greco-Roman match, it was the second round, no one scored any points. That first round was crazy. There were like 2 or 3 huge throws. It was so much fun. What I was a bit next time. I am going to say I'm a bit disappointed that the guys were not actually using the fence to their advantage at all. It seemed like a normal wrestling match just happening in the middle of the ring, or of the cage, and no one wanted to go and move. But I think that's also to be expected. These guys don't train in a cage. And so they kind of
it's a whole different game. It's a whole different thing to learn using the cage.
But that's what made it so interesting. Like, to me, what made it interesting is like, how will the cage actually factor in? You're going to see a lot more MMA wrestling with like the guy in on the single leg with the other guy standing against the cage. I was really interested to see how top level wrestlers would deal with that. And instead they went back to the normal wrestling, which is understandable because that's what they're used to and that's what they're going to go to as their default. I think maybe if he does this for a few more years, guys will start to learn how to use the cage, and it might be.
Once people start getting advantages using the cage, people are going to be forced to learn how to really use it.
And I'm really excited to see that happen because I think it'll take and I think that also feeds really well in with MMA in general, because when you have people that are only focused on BJJ or only the wrestling, but they're doing it in a cage environment, they're going to find some new things, new ways to use the cage that even MMA guys don't use when they're doing wrestling. And those things are going to translate and actually potentially add in and make MMA grow just by nature of that.
Yeah. I'm glad that's airing. I'm going to have to catch it next time because I unfortunately was not able to catch it this time around.
Yeah.
Anyways, that settles the week, I think.
I believe so. I guess that being said, as always, we ask all of you guys to like, comment, and subscribe. We apologize, by the way, for being a little bit late. This is a Monday show. This actually might come out on Tuesday morning because it's being recorded late on Monday. But we will be back this coming Sunday at our usual time, around 6 or 7 p.m. We'll be posting. We will see you in about 5 days. Until then.
Sounds good.
Have a great week.
Take care, everybody.